things work out really good. Okay. Now we need to go to the record. Hey, Daryl, somebody with the letter M. Mystery. Hey, guys, turn on your videos, or not if you don't want to. Yeah, Daryl, there's a replay. Yeah, totally. Boy, Daryl, have you been getting my emails? I'm wondering if my emails are going into spam as well. I've been having problems with everything, actually. The Facebook group basically got closed down from me accessing it. And yeah, so let's discuss that. But in the meantime, the camera's on, the speaker's on, and now it's the record. Let's see. Let's just put the date in. 1/25/26. Excellent. So I think we're going, 2 seconds into it. So, hey, welcome everybody, and thanks for joining me today. And let's see. Welcome, Ageless Warriors. I'm Benedick Howard, your longevity architect. So today we're going to move beyond the slow decline, which we've been looking into, and into the Rebels toolkit to get beyond the slow decline. We aren't just talking about health, we're talking about tuning your body's central processing unit. And basically, it's a long study that I did with the electrical stim, which I'll get into a little bit, but next session more. The central processing unit and the nervous system. In the next 30 minutes, we deconstruct the executive bottleneck and reveal how to use microcurrent biofeedback. And this is more of the concept than you actually going out and buying one, but if you want to, that's great. I have training behind that too. And to have direct dialogue with your brainstem. So that's really what it's about, is right, balancing what's going on up here to the rest of the body. And once that's in sync, which is through these 6 points you see on the screen there, then everything comes into balance. And the central processing unit, which is basically at the brain stem here, can connect up and connect back into the body. So it's time to stop treating symptoms, right? And start architecting your biology for resilient equilibrium. I'm talking about electrical equilibrium. So let's begin and let's build. So about today, the voltage issue, unlocking the secrets of this bioelectrical healing. And I've got this comprehensive guide that we're going to be looking at to the DNAS microcurrent biofeedback, and I'll get more into that in a bit. Based on a decade, which is of evidence-based results, I'm revealing the brushing and priming foundation for recharging cellular voltage and reversing chronic pain or health patterns. And we'll learn how to interpret the body's 3 critical feedback signals, which is stickiness, and this is a response of the skin to the stim, the stickiness, the loudness, and the different color changes to target trigger zones and stimulate rapid rejuvenation. So whether you're managing acute pain or long inflammatory diseases, discover that this 95% high-speed rule and neuropeptide protocols designed to move you from the passive symptom management to active, self-controlled neuroadaptive regulation. So we're balancing the way that the nerves are all firing in the body. And once you've got that in sync, everything else will basically crystallize underneath that balance. So let's have a look. We are, if you want to download, if you're on the Zoom now, click that download button and download the Inner Architect Mastering the Microcurrent Dialogue, and you'll get more details on this. And but in the meantime, let's take a look at the slides here. And so, this inner architect, this inner side of ourselves, that's, part of us, who we are. And this relationship between this physical, chemical, electrical, emotional, physical, mental, all of those bodies, collected as one. And we're going to look at the end of the presentation. And I'm going to show you just quickly. We're going to look at this slide in particular, which is the dodecahedron and how that organizes the space in and around us. And that's why I used it for the longest time in the sound therapy environments. So we're looking now at going back to this image here, if it'll load. Yeah, this inner car, which is beyond the programmable consciousness. In other words, what I'm really talking about here is consciousness evolution. If you've got your whole body in balance, then you're more evolved consciously to make better decisions for yourself and others. And it's a big part of why I'm really a proponent of fasting. But we're talking here more about the understanding the electrical microcurrent dialogue, a non-verbal conversation, which is going on with your nervous system, trying to restore equilibrium and homeostasis. And the geometry, which we just looked at, the dodecahedron, is that antenna interconnecting into that space. So with these two devices, this is actually the device that I got from Professor Ravenko back in the day. It's the original device that I got from him. So this was it's all in Russian here, 2004, when I took the training with him. This model had just come out at that time. And it had all these bells and whistles on it, and it was exceedingly complicated actually to understand how to use. And the modern version of that now has been updated, and this is the Scanner Pro model, which comes in at around $4,000, I think now. And in the last session on 1/18/26, I showed you the curved Danas, which if you haven't seen that and listened or watched that video and the article that's linked to it, please do. So it's this pure biofeedback, which is like measuring where there are what they're called asymmetries. And, so when you get these voltages, which are higher on one part of the body compared to the other, or going down the back, which is, let's just hide this for a moment, going back, that's number 3 there, better remember it, going down the spine there. So these points on the face relate to the points in going up into the brainstem there and down into the spine. So that's what we're really managing at this level, which is basically the core concept. But one can also go into all of the different, techniques and what we can do with the simple device that you see there, which was the original. It cost like $300 back in the day. This is talking 2007, 2008, when I started this study. And when you go to this, go to my website, and this is the latest blog that's gone up there. And if you click on blog, you'll get a slide showing the rest of the blogs there. And that's pity that it's not bigger. But here is like a little wheel of the devices as they developed over the decades, literally. These were primarily the Danas line. It doesn't, and they were all really remarkable. And you see the black one here that's lying on the left-hand side, and then you've got the Danas right above it, and the Diadans T and the Diadans DT, which had acupuncture probes with it, and then that Zudans, I think that was the yellow-colored one there was for treating the eyes, and this one, I'm not quite sure what that one is. And the blue one, the green one there was for treating animals. And all with amazing results. So you can read more about this, but I just wanted to introduce you to this. So the essential basic concept, like I was saying, you've got high voltage one side of the body compared to the other, right? If you've got like that asymmetry, the symmetry is ass backwards, right? So that, the depleted state, which say is like 10%. So when your cell phone goes flat, it needs charging. And in the energized state, all of the functions within the cell membrane and the cells and the fluids around it and the energy plasmas that are around all of this stuff, and actually the top secret part of this, and the relationship that this and how fast those cells charge up, and then there's different rules as to charging up the battery, right? Depends on how big it is, how small it is, how big the charge is, etc., etc. But what they designed, the Russians designed here, was like to have a unit or have a device that was totally organic to the body, and the signal actually mimics the signal coming down the nerve fibers. So let's get me out of the way here. So this top illustration here with the lower part of the body and these three blue lines going down there, that refers to going down the spine on the back and measuring the voltages or the impedance or the resistance, whichever you want to call it. They're all the same thing, but they're different qualities of it. And if there's any imbalances, say from scoliosis, which is pinching a nerve on one side or the other side, which is, from me, that was the big thing for me. It was like I had major issues with my neck from when a wall came down on me, basically, when I was like, I don't know, 14 or something. I write about it on the about page of my site, BenedickHoward.com. And but this one here, the quadrant 1, the little wings, is super important. You'll see in the article, I write a little bit more about it. I just want to introduce it to you. Basically, we're reconnecting the vagus system, the vagal nerves, the parasympathetics into the sympathetics. And what that does is it connects the whole body spectrum back into this field out here. And when we become closed and tightened off and sad and everything and constricted, then that vagal energy isn't coming in, and it basically uses that dodecahedron matrix, but it uses that energy around us, the ether energy around us, to help to coordinate the balance of the body, the digestion, and all of the stuff that we don't even need to think about it, because it's all basically circadian or driven by the sun. And over on the right there, the goggles, actually, they don't look like that. They had like electrodes that go around the eye, and they would different frequencies, especially down in the 10 hertz range. And yeah, there's people that had really good results with that. I personally haven't. I should be, and because I wear glasses, but I haven't been doing that. Now, in the master training, there's a lot of this sort of Star of David, tummy tuck, sort of symmetrical placement of the electrodes and measuring around different points. So blam, 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 blam. Is this one flatter charge, less charge over here? In which case you come back and you give it a dose. And so this, whether they're high or low, really is like a diagnostic principle that is really, really powerful in terms of like introducing the electrical stimulation in the correct position in the body. Now, that could be, of course, a wound or an injury or tight hip or, whatever, musculoskeletal. It could be the organs, it could be the liver is not functioning properly. So every organ, including every organ, they all have places on the body that we can measure. Some of them are pretty logical, like on top of the kidneys, on top of the liver, on top of the heart, right? And but also you could go into the intricacies of acupuncture and use that as a way of mapping in too. And so, and then the fourth component is the fourth quadrant of tracking the pain. You see, when you've got, like, say, a pain in the neck here, and if you were to use this little wings thing on that, it lifts up this muscle, and like it's pretty gnarly. It's really gnarly. but it's unbelievably effective for like major frigging chronic whiplash that nothing else can handle long term. And this will just straighten out the vertebrae, the cervicals in the neck. And when I do that on people, they're like tears of joy of being able to move their neck again, you know, and it's just like almost instant. I mean, it's like a 10-second sort of application. And so what we do with the tracking the pain is like, if that was a pain in the neck here, right? And we correct the cervicals, now you're going to become aware of other pains in the body, which would probably be lower down in the back where the scoliosis has gone off because of the tension in the neck. And the whole back is compromised and pinching on a nerve down, say, in the lumbar, right? So you'd go down to that position. Or if it was like with your intestines, you know, you got your stomach growling, or you've eaten too much, or you've got food poisoning, or you've just got digestive stuff. Wherever that tension or pain or sensation is in the belly, then you'd put the device right on that position, wherever it is, say in the belly in this case. And so that's basically the techniques that I discovered over the years of, one, training to the master level, and secondly, making it really easy. So it was like these units, which come in at $3,000, you know, it's a lot. That's a chunk of change. So my goal was to use the little handheld curved scanner, I mean DNAS, and see if I could get the same results. Because there was a lot of naysayers, like blah blah blah. You'll see in the article. I go into it more there, and you know, so there's a lot of resistance to like this 300 device and this 3,000 device and the money that they could make off the 3,000 device and blah blah blah. But don't forget that these all ran off AA batteries. So once you got the technology and once you understand the circuitry and where to set them, that's what you did. So this neurostimulation waveform on the DNAS unit was that there were two speeds on it: a 77, which is actually the cruising normal frequency that's in these. Actually, this defaults to like 90.2 volts. 90.2 hertz, I think it is, or 90 hertz. And so the different manufacturers came up with different base frequencies that they used, probably so that they could remain unique and have mystery around it and the sales talk around it too. And so you got like this higher signal, which is going to deliver more electricity in a given time frame than the lower frequency. And the 10 hertz, the 5 dosing frequencies, you'd put the electrodes, say, on a position, and you'd measure how long it takes for it to ring out. So once it's charged up the area to a certain level, then the circuitry in here says, okay, the battery is no longer flat, it doesn't need to charge anymore. And just like with your phone, when the charge gets fully up, the battery charger stops charging, right? And the lower frequency was used because it's more calming and steadying, right? So it's like to really sort of take that 77 tingle and then pulse it at 77. So it's a completely different wave frequency and resonance into the dodecahedron, basically. So the there's 3 qualities to what happens with the device on the skin. And it's because the signal, the wobble of the signal, basically is tapping the cellular structure in the skin, and it is resonating, the skin is resonating to that frequency. So when the skin is really depleted and there's electrical blockage, like, you know, from an injury, an acute injury could be, or a long-term injury, that voltage is going to be lower. And when you brush the device across the skin, it's sticky. And maybe you can see it here. It's like the skin is just a little sticky there. Now, the reason for that is that it's trying to soak up more electricity, right? So as you do more of that brushing onto those positions, and we'll look at how it works with different people in the study, and go to the site, because this is really foundational, important work that I was doing back then, and it got me shut down. It got me threatened with legal stuff, and I'm not going to go into that here, but it hasn't been easy. And so when you do brush that area and get that charge happening back into it, say in this area, the skin will go red to begin with people in the first few sessions, right? And that's the histamine reaction. It's beginning to get online again, and it's pushing out the toxins and moving on. So, the results can be, a whole bunch of things. But like with the TMJ, it's about applying it right in that area. And you'll see how, I think it was Cynthia, how she resonated, how her TMJ was not relieved, it was taken completely, quote, and I can't use this word, but I'm not a medical doctor, disclaimer bullshit, but this is what I've been seeing as somebody in the field. Now with the clean wound healing, an extreme example was, I was on my way to do lectures down in El Salvador in 2006 maybe, and give doctors and train doctors down there. And as I was packing my suitcase, I was also taking a dodecahedron with me, a Dreamweaver with me, the sound environment. I dropped the edge of the suitcase, which was fully laden, on the end of my big toe, and it cut off the end of my big toe. Just the end skin, it came down like that, in frigging tense pain. And it was actually this unit. I grabbed it, turned it on, and set it at very, very low power, just enough to maybe get some tingles in there because the nerves were already hyper excited. And I put the device on there, and within 10 minutes, the pain was gone. Now, that's a gating thing that we were doing electrically on the pain receptors and how they fire and send the signals back to the brain. More on that in the Scientific American article that I have somewhere. Remind me about it. And so the fire ant bites, the same thing. And Chris had 3rd-degree burns down his arm like this. And there's a YouTube video that I put up there years ago showing his progression from that night when he burnt to 12 days later when all of these areas in there were completely healed. There was no scarring whatsoever. You couldn't tell the difference in the skin. And that's the power of not only the neuropeptide mix, which we're going to go to next, but also the stem cell production that happens from the stem. So if you look at David, here's another example. David was an athlete, and then later on an investor, but he had multiple surgeries for back and neck injuries from football, and he'd spent the last 10 years in unbelievable pain. You touched him and he was in pain, right? Chronic, acute, and chronic, but acute pain for any touch, severe immune system. And within, and catch this, it was in week 1, he was bedridden for 10 years. I don't think he was actually walking at 30 minutes in week 1. I think that came in week 4. But he kept on using it and using it consistently. And by month 2, his back pain was significant reduction. And you can see his testimonial below, but it's easy to read on the website. And excuse me. And by the 2nd week, he was beginning to get out of bed and could be out of bed for longer periods of time over the 1st week to the 3rd, 4th week. And by the 2nd, 3rd, 4th week, he was he was able to wash dishes and get back into helping the family, right? And he was one of the main studies because it was remarkable what happened for him. And he was also very, very knowledgeable about the inflammatory process. And he was microdosing different antibiotics in order to just maintain a very, very low level. And that was sort of like, it wasn't curing him, but it was like, treating it. And so, and then there was another lady, oh gosh, this is such a beautiful story. Her daughter had a AVN, arterial venal collapse in the neck. And normally within a few minutes, if you don't get into hospital and stuff, the whole side of the brain gets shut down and they go and they become paralyzed. And that's what happened to her. 3 months later, her mom came into training, and you can read about it in the article. And 3 months later, it's about that time frame. 3 months later, she was walking around. I mean, she was holding onto the back of the couch. I remember at 3 months, but she was able to get around the room again. And that was so remarkable. And Eunice, who was like the mother, I remember I don't know, week 6 or something, she said, Ben, Eunice smiled on both sides of her face. So what we were doing, let's just hide this for a moment. What we were doing is bringing all of these circuits into balance. Hey, Rita, welcome. Rubita, welcome. Jonathan, Daryl, and Mystery Ham, welcome. So let's see if I can move this out of the way. Come on, what's going on? Can't move it. But what we're doing there is she was basically tingling all of the nerves in the skin by brushing both sides and getting the nerves to regroup and regrow. And that I've seen time and time again with all sorts of neuropathies. So it's not just a one-off thing. So basically, we're looking at this, don't go over there, there we go. This brainstem connection, which I keep on going back to. And it later, in the last, a few years back, I did this brainstem, this core command center study over about a year, and measuring these different points and recording them in data. So every day I would measure them at a certain date of time, et cetera, et cetera. And that's going to come at the end of next month. I've got to get all of that data into what do you call it, Notebook LM. And but it's been so helpful having the AI to help me put all of this data together. There's like 500 pages of data just in this one study that we're looking at here. 47 hours of conferences. So back to this 6-point facial nerve thing and this whole mapping, and you can read about it on the website. Now we've got just a few minutes left, I see, and this is the important part of this that nobody gets. It's not tens, units, or anything like that. This is where the signal was designed, and we took a lot of work. I know the Russians it took them a lot of time to get this right, but it was to have the signal tingle these long C fibers. And what happens when you do that, you get what's called an epidergic effect. You can barely find it on the internet anymore. And what happens when you stimulate the nerves like that, and also it's stimulating from running or being in the cold or being in the hot or being, and when the body is fasted, all of the stimulation comes way forward. And what's happening is that stimulation secretes all of these different neuropeptide building blocks, essentially hormonal building blocks or tissue building blocks, and it secretes it and manufactures it directly, I believe, out of the etheric. There's no other way that it can come in. And it's all to do with this 30 million volts per meter. And we covered that in the last one. And that was January the 18th. And I'll show you that slide in a moment on that article. But I really want you to think of this and sort of summarizing this up. The house is an electrical system. If one of the circuit breaker goes out on your house, you go out and it's like, oh, okay, it's the washing machine or whatever, right? Or it's the stove or whatever. It's the same with the human body. If the circuits are bad and it's tripped, as it were, then if we charge it, turn them back on again, then of course the lights go on, right? And that's as simple as healing can get. You don't need long training. You don't need blah, 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 all of this. It's all diseases across all the spectrum. And in the 1985, they did clinical studies on 18,255 people, and they got an 88.25% cure rates across all of the disease groups. No wonder we didn't hear about it, but I did. So architecting your longevity. So it's like this map between you and this GPS out here. The ultimate immersion is, coming in with me on a one-on-one health retreat in Hawaii. But, I'm looking at that down the road. In the meantime, I really want to educate you as to this technology so you can start to remap the indoctrination that you've been fed with through all of life, essentially. So at the end of the article, there's a whole bunch of FAQs for you to look at. And so, join the rebellion. Some of you already are, and this is great. You're already in the, and thank you very much for founding members to the Ageless Warrior Alliance. Thank you very much for joining there and, giving me a subscription every month. I really want to keep that price super low so that we can spread this. And whatever you can do to share this with friends and social media, if you'd always use the hashtag Ageless Warrior Alliance or Ageless Warrior, but Ageless Warrior Alliance, one word. And and so every week I'm going to come on with these strategic briefings, and that was today's briefing, and which is this exclusive knowledge that I've been able to, that I've chosen to come forward with now. And each time we'll have new articles and new blah, blah, and everything else that comes with all of this stuff that I'm spending, just 30 hours on this one presentation. And so it's like, 120, 30 hours every month, plus the other stuff I'm doing with the website and things. So join the community and get the Founder's Advantage. And there's the link, and be great to see you there. Meanwhile, do take a look at The Heart is Not a Pump, the rethinking of human biology and longevity. This has again to do with the dodecahedron and this connection that happens through that. So in closing, it's been my pleasure to be with you today. And, it's like, I'll read from my script here. As we conclude today's briefing, let's look at how far we've come. In January, we completed the Great Rethink. We deconstructed the machine's metaphors that have limited your potential for decades. We're not a machine. We revealed that your heart is a vortex, not a pump, and your immune system is an intelligent gardener. Actually, it's doubtful that the immune system even exists. It's more of a plasma system, I believe. And it's not an army at war, which is what we were taught it's got to take out all these bad guys. So today we've officially entered the next phase of our rebellion, this architecting of the inner sanctuary, right? The inner system. And we're moving from theory to the rebel's toolkit. And you've seen how microcurrent biofeedback allows you to have a direct dialogue with your nervous system, the central processing unit of your longevity. Over the next 3 weeks, we will master the grounded executive protocol, unlock the hormetic edge through strategic cold and fasting, and finally reveal the brainstem blueprint for total bio-sovereignty. For your weekly challenge, practice this vibrational alignment posture, which I talked about in the second interview with, and identifying with your chronic software glitch, So it's really to acknowledge it so that you can bring it out into the open and deal with, say, a recurring pain or stress point that you're ready to eliminate. And if you're ready for the GPS to your unique terrain, book your one-on-one nervous system blueprint session with me. Go forth, question everything, and continue to architect your longevity. Warrior Benedick, I'm out. Let's see. Close that. Close that. There we are. And let's see if I can get myself to full page. No, I can't. Don't know how we do that. So great to see you here, guys. Let's see what we've got in the chat. Okay, good, Daryl. I'm just having, yeah, I'm going to stop the recording now on the screen, and then I'll answer some Q&As. And yeah, there we go. Close.